All right, here we go with our Stage 8 review. One of the things that you're going to have to do on your test is translate some verbs. I've given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right here. What I want you to do is I want you to look at these verbs. I want you to be able to translate them and tell me what tense they are. So you can hit pause and try that out with kept it, when did it, desperate, erotic, etc. Okay, kept it is perfect tense. I know that because I know my principal parts for copio are copio, copera, kepi. So that's perfect tense. He caught. When deeded, I know that that is the perfect stem for window, and that's going to be he sold. Desperaba, I see the BA, that's going to be imperfect. He was despairing. ERA is the sum conjugation symbol for the imperfect, so he was BA. I have imperfect for habebat, or for that, excuse me, that's he was living. Emit, I know my principal parts, that E, if it has a macron, is going to be perfect. If it doesn't, it's going to be present. If it doesn't have a macron, it's going to be he sells, and if it does, it's going to be he bought. That one's a tough one. That one's a tough one. Make sure you're checking out to make sure it does or does not have that macron. Super awit, it does have a perfect clue. That perfect clue is the V. So he overcame. This one's tough. It has the ERA in there. I have to remember that it comes from ad sum. Conjugation of sum with ERA is imperfect, so I have he or they were present. Fecit, again, principal parts of facio. That is my perfect stem, so he made. You're going to have to look at verbs that way and translate them that way, but you're also going to have to look at English sentences and determine what verb would be used in Latin. So I have is reclining, that's present tense. Recumbit is perfect tense, so I need present tense recumbit. I have is here, that's conjugation of sum. That's was, so that erat is imperfect. I'm going to choose the present est. Here, the next one, we have they fought yesterday. So they, I'm looking for NT. All of them have NT, so it doesn't help me out there. Fought is in the past, so I know it's not going to be present tense. It's going to be either the imperfect or the perfect. And fought, the best answer is pugnawerent. You could probably pick pugnabant as well, but the best answer, because we're looking for was or were for the imperfect, remember. The best answer is the pugnawerent. Split sentences. We went over these throughout the week. These are throughout your test. And what the split sentence does is it has something that splits one part of the main clause from the other part of the main clause. When you're doing this, what you have to think of is the Latin word order, which is usually the nominative, then the accusative, and then the verb. So verbs are ending the clauses. That habebat ends that clause in the box, and emit is going to end the clause that's outside. They're going to have plenty of these split sentences in there. So you make sure that you're looking for nominative, accusative, and the verb so that you can get to the subject, verb, and direct object in English. So in this first one, I have the lanista, which is the trainer of the gladiators. So the lanista bought pugnax. So I have lanista as a nominative, I have pugnax as my accusative, I have emin as my verb, that's the nominative, accusative, and the verb. So I have the right word order for Latin. I need to change it to subject, verb, direct object. The subject is going to be my nominative, that's the lanista. The accusative is going to be pugnax, that's going to be the direct object. And then emit is my verb. So I have lanista, my verb emit, and then pugnax is my direct object. Translation, the lanista bought pugnax. Try that other one right there on your own. See how you do. Okay, again, I'm looking for the Latin word order, which is the nominative, the accusative, then the verb. Most of our clauses are going to end with that verb. So I see my verb when did it over here. I'm going to box that guy out, separate it. I have nominative, I have accusative, I have my verb. This one's kind of tough because it gives you something right here that could be nominative based off of the endings that we know. Remember, our first declension AAE, our second, the accusatives are AM and AS. Not the second declension. Mess that up. Second declension is USUM. No, it's not. It's US and I. and then um and os. And third declension is we don't have a base with es and then em and es. These endings are pretty important for this test, so I would make sure that I went back over those. Winnelicus is my second declension ending. My second declension ending for the nominative, so that's my subject, the slave dealer. The gladiatorius, like I said, has es. It could be this nominative here, but it is not. And the reason that it is not is because the verb vendidet is singular. So I can't have a plural nominative with a singular verb. So I know that es is accusative for sure. Have the slave dealer, after he bought the slaves, sold the gladiators. All right, we have whether something is positive, comparative, or superlative. Hey, here's a clue. We don't know the comparative yet, so I don't think I would choose that for an answer. Positive are the adjectives without any kind of marker inside of them. Remember, if we get double S or double R or double L, we're going to be using the superlative. Translation of these, I'm going to translate these two as normal, just insane and happy. I'm going to use most, very, or est to translate these ones with the double S, the double R's, and the double L's. So insanissimus is most insane or very insane. We wouldn't use insanus because it's not a word. However, on latissimus, we would use most happy, very happy, or happiest. I don't think we would use most happy because we have happiest. In English, if we have the est ending, we wouldn't use most. Whenever we're translating, there are two ways you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to look at the Latin gladiator nodus erat pugnax, recognize that as a positive, and pugnax was a famous, not very famous, but a famous gladiator. It doesn't have the very, the most, or the est because it doesn't have that double S or double R like this one does. Pugnax was very famous. That's associated with that double S. You could also use most famous because famous-istus is not a word. You're also going to have to look at the English. The Murmillo was very brave, and determine whether was very brave, scroll down, is either a positive form or a superlative form. Because we're using very, that's associated with that double S. So I would choose that second sentence. I'm going to take this down here real quick because I'm going to use that. You're going to have to determine what declension a word is. If you look at the words and you've done your due diligence and made sure that you remember your personal endings here, let me group those real quick. You're going to make sure that you remember all of those personal endings. If you do, then this shouldn't be an issue. So I see the AE. I see an AE over here. That is first declension. So you do these other four real quick and see if you can use this chart over here. Use this chart over here to determine what declension it is. Gladiatorius has ES. I have two ES's right here, so that belongs to third declension. Poeta ends in A. That's first declension. Signum, UM. Here's my UM. It's part of the second declension. And then the EM is the third declension. You're also going to have to determine singular and plurals. We've been doing this pretty much on all of our tests so far. You're going to get in English, the sailors praise the merchants. What I would do if I were you is I would look at each word. Sailors is plural. Praised has to be plural because the subject sailors is plural. Merchants is also plural. And then you're going to choose one of these two sentences. Nata is singular. Mercatorum is singular. Laudawit is singular. I look at those endings. I have A, E, M, and T. Those are all singular endings. That's not the answer to this question because I need plurals. And my plurals are the AE, the ES, and the NT. So know the difference between singulars and plurals, especially with your verbs. Latin vocab, these are those short words that we worked on all week. Again, for iterum, suddenly, for subito, but, for said, tandem, finally, tamen, however. English vocab and word study. Make sure that your vocab is solid. From this chapter, it will help you with things like facilitate, coming from facile, which means easy, or easily. So this is something that is makes it easier. So facilitate is something that I do to make something easier. Recumbent comes from recumbent. It is to lie down. So something is recumbent is lying down. We have trans, which means across, and silva, which means wood, so across the woods. That's what Transylvania is. We have gladiola, which comes from gladius, which is sword. Gladiola is something that is sword-shaped. Sylvan comes from silva, that is wood, so sylvan is wooded area. Puerility coming from puer, which is a boy, so this is boyish or childish. Sanguinary comes from sanguine, which is blood, so sanguinary is bloodthirsty or having to do with blood. Habitat comes from habitat, which is to live, or he is living. Habitat is a dwelling place. Aqueduct coming from aqua, water, and duct, which means to lead. An aqueduct is a channel that leads water to wherever you want it to go. Pedestrian, this is a little tougher, comes from ped, which is foot. If you think of a person representing society, the top of society would be the head, the bottom of society would be the foot, and that foot would be the lowest or the pedestrian part of society, or the most common part of society. So pedestrian is common. Porculus, that is the gate. If you're entering one of these massive castles, this is a big castle that I'm pretending to build here. The gate that slides up and down, it's got the little spikes on it, and it has, the gel type bars that you can walk in now, but if you drop it all the way down, it's closed. It keeps people out. That's a porculus. Repugnant comes from pugna, which is to fight. If you fight over and over, you are repelling something. So those are the word studies. Word studies are made easier if you will look at your Latin vocab and try to associate the Latin vocab with the definitions. Cultural vocab. Make sure that you know how each one of these gladiators are armed, or their armor. Bestiari, for example, they're the ones that are fighting all of the beasts. They don't have any armor. All they have is their little thrusting spear, and they have to rely on their agility and their thrusting spear to kill all those animals. Murmillos, remember, these guys are associated with fish. They are paired with the retiari, which are associated with fishermen. That's why these two are always paired together. So you have the murmillo that has that massive shield and that long sword. On his helmet, he'll have some kind of symbolism for fish, whether it be Poseidon or usually it's just a fish symbol on his head. Retiari are associated with fishermen. They have that trident. They'll have that trident, and they have a trident and a net. They don't have any other kind of armor really, except for on their shoulder. Venatio, that is the hunting of animals. That's where the bestiari would show their stuff, is in that show where they're hunting animals. Samnite, he's got that square type shield, and he has a short sword. Suspirium puellarum is literally the heartthrob of the women, so that represents a gladiator, superstar. Thracians, they're going to have the round shield, and they've got like a really short dagger type thing that they're going to use in their battles. Thumbs up. Remember, our thumbs up says kill them. A wooden sword, also known as a rudiarius, is a symbol of their freedom. Tuba announces the games are about to begin. Cultural questions. Shape of the amphitheater. We know that the shape of the amphitheater was oval. When did the spectators arrive? Just before dawn. What would gladiators do before the fights began? They greeted the spectators. We who are about to die salute you. Kinds of people became gladiators: slaves, prisoners of wars, criminals. You could have a freedman become a gladiator because he wants to make some money as well. How and by whom were the gladiators trained? Remember, they went to the ludi, which is that barrack type area. They were trained by the lanista, which is the trainer in the ludi. A lot of times that would be a former gladiator. Sometimes it would just be a slave owner who specialized in gladiators. What types of gladiators were matched in battle? The two biggest ones were the retiari and the murmillo. We've talked about why. That's the fish, the murmillo, versus the fisherman, the retiari. That's why he has a net and a trident. That's how they would be fishing. What did the thumbs down represent? We want him to live. What gifts would a gladiator receive? He would receive money, the best wine, good food if he were winning. Even women. What was the floor of the arena covered in? Sand. Why? Well, you use sand because you're going to have a consistent footing. If you use some other type of material, if blood or sweat and stuff were on the floor, it becomes slippery, it would become less consistent. So you had a consistent footing with that sand, and mostly it's just to catch all the blood. When did the Great Riot occur? Great Riot was 59 AD. Who wrote the account of the riot? That would be Tacitus. Emperor at the time was Nero. He actually, what happened was a lot of the people that were hurt during this riot were taken to Rome. And Nero demanded that an inquiry be made into the riot. And he found who was the senator that paid for the games where the riot began? That was Regulus. And he found that Regulus was to be blamed, along with some of the other wealthy members of Pompeii, and he was sentenced. What was his punishment? He was exiled from the city. Which city won the fight? Pompeians destroyed the Assyrians. What was the city's punishment? They couldn't hold the games for 10 years. When did Caecilius attend the gladiatorial show? Well, it has to be somewhere around that time. It can't be after, because 10 years they couldn't have it. And I guess it could have been after 69 AD. So it has to be 59 or before. What did the games during the riot celebrate? That was Regulus's birthday. Want to help us out a little bit with some of the format you're going to see on your test. You're going to get stuff just like this. For example, you're going to have to determine what petawaerent is translated. That's canis feracitor petawaerent. The key to that one is going to be determining whether it is perfect attacked, whether it was present attack. And I do have two attacked here. So how do I tell the difference between the two? Well, these two are possible because this is perfect. This one's gone. It's present. Get it out of there. So I have to determine now whether I have a singular or a plural dog. I look at canis, I have a plural dog, so my answer is C. And I had to do two things here. I had to determine the number of dogs and the tense of the verb. I have Agricola gladiatorius laudaverent. I need to know what is the case and number of gladiatorius. These could be, the gladiatorius could be nominative or accusative. Agricolae can only be nominative. So if it can only be nominative, reason tells me this has to be accusative. And if I translate this, the farmers praise the gladiators, then I know that Agricolae is nominative plural and gladiatorius is accusative plural. So you had to use a little logic there. If I already have a nominative plural, I don't need another one. They were encouraging good students. I'm asking you to translate were encouraging. Where is the key word? That's imperfect. I need a BA. There's my BA. That's my answer. I have today, the master is most satisfied. The key here is most satisfied. The key is most, so I'm looking for a double S. There it is. That's my answer. If I had the master is satisfied, I would use contentus, but because I use that superlative most, I have to use the superlative condissimus. Okay. Because this is a larger part of your test, I wanted to go over this. You're going to have about 10 or 15 of these where you're going to have to look at the word gladiator, and you're going to have to determine whether it's singular, plural, and whether it's nominative or accusative. Here I have Pugnax was a most famous gladiator. Remember when I have a linking verb, I have two nominatives. So gladiator is nominative. Is it singular or plural? If it were plural, I have es, so it is singular. Mirabilim, easy, just look at the ending. em is accusative and singular. Omnes, I know it's plural because it ends in es, but I don't know, so these are gone. Singulars are gone. So it's either nominative plural or accusative plural. I have to translate the sentence to figure that out. I have a linking verb. That gives me a clue. With a linking verb, I need two nominatives. So B is my answer. For duos retiarios, OS, well, coach, that's accusative plural ending, can't be anything else. Pugnam, well, that AM is accusative singular ending, coach, can't be anything else. The key to all of this is remembering that that chart that we have worked so hard on and remembering those endings, because that will make this much easier for you as you go through these parts of your test. I would review those tonight about 80 billion times. Singular and plural. Get rid of that. Nominative and accusative. For our first declension, we have A and AE. For our nominatives, we have AM and AS for our accusatives. For our nominatives in the second declension, we have US or I. For our accusatives, we have UM and OS. For our third declension, for our nominative, we don't have a standard ending for it. In the singular, we do have ES for the plural. And then for our accusatives, we have ES. We have EM and ES. This right here, I would make sure that I knew it by heart whenever I came into the test, because it's going to make it a lot easier when you're dealing with these kinds of questions. That's it for our review. Again, make sure that you go over that chart that I have right here in the red, and good luck.